I don't wish your soul to go through that. I hate cooking. Can you help me figure out if my husband's a serial killer? And then I hated it. I would never do that. If someone invited me to their bachelorette party and I hadn't seen them in 10 years, I'd probably be like, haha, probably not. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today you are joining me for a fall book unhaul. It rhymes, which means that this is gonna be a great video. I have taken the intro of this video 3 times because my cats are both in my bedroom with me. They'll cry and they'll scratch the door if they're not in here, but they don't actually want to be in here, so they're just going crazy. So this is my 3rd attempt, and hopefully they will be quiet long enough that I can say what I need to say. The internet loves when I post unhauls. They are by far my most viewed videos, so thanks for that. I don't love being negative on the internet, but I do love being ruthless about things that I don't like, and I love sharing my opinions. So I just want to point out before we get into the unhaul portion of the video that I will unhaul books that I enjoyed. If I don't see myself picking them up again, I'll get rid of them. Well, yes, a lot of the books on this list are books that I didn't like. Some of them are books that I liked, and I will definitely recommend them to you as I go if I think they're worth your time. This first book sort of falls into that category, actually. It's The Sun and Her Flowers. Obviously, I fell into the trap of sad girl litfic poetry when it was all the rage back in, I think this came out in 2017. And I read it and I really did enjoy it. I thought the poetry in here was beautiful, but it's also just been sitting on my nightstand for the last 7 years with all those other books also sitting on my nightstand over there. And I've never felt the need to pick it back up. I've never felt the want to pick it back up. And I think it's time for me to find this a new home. So if you love the sad girl litfic poetry trend, this is a great choice. I'm sure you've already read it because I feel like this is a very, very famous collection. But it's just not something that my reading tastes have evolved to include, and that's okay. By the way, I do have a whole bunch of paperbacks on my lap that we're talking about first, and then a stack of hardbacks behind me because those are heavy and I didn't want them to sit on my lap while I talk. Also, a lot of these books I've talked about in videos on my channel, some of them I haven't. If you want more full thoughts, you can go find those videos. They'll be very easy to find. I always put the books that I read in the thumbnail, just like this. And so you'll very clearly be able to pick out what you're looking for if you want to hear me. Anyway, you can go find these books and videos on my channel if you want to hear any more full thoughts than what I'm giving in here. So there's no longer a stack of books behind me. Are you okay? She seems fine. We're just going to continue on like that didn't even happen. The next book I'm unhauling is Under Lock and Skeleton Key. This is just a kind of goofy, silly, cozy mystery that I've had on my TBR for a while. It has recipes in the back, and I was kind of hanging on to it because I wanted to try the recipes in the back, but I hate cooking, so why would I ever do that? I'm not going to. And this book was just like a 2.5 star. I thought it was kind of dumb, although the plot twist got me. We're basically following our main girl. She's kind of come home. There's a mystery in her hometown. Her family is like a family of magicians. There's also potentially a curse on the family. Like, there's just a lot going on in here. And her father owns a construction company that builds houses that look different on the inside than they do on the outside. It's very complex and a little bit disjointed. It was silly, it was kind of fun, but never gonna see myself reading this again, and wouldn't recommend it as a cozy mystery if you're looking for a cozy mystery. Then I have An Ordinary Violence, which granted is one of the worst books I've read this year, maybe ever, honestly. The writing in here is just god awful, and I can see how the storyline would be interesting. I remember absolutely loving the last 30 pages of this, but the build up to that point was terrible. We're following our main girl, Dawn. This is kind of a horror thriller vibe, by the way. I'm not really sure. Dawn is coming home from somewhere else that she was living in Canada. She, I believe, lives in a town that's pretty run down on a reservation somewhere. Her brother has also just got released from prison. He's doing some kind of sketchy stuff. Dawn is maybe connecting with the spirit world. And I still, after finishing the book, don't really have answers for you because I don't really know what happened in here. And it wasn't like the kind of like, ooh, mysterious, I'm supposed to be confused horror. It was like the author didn't know how to tell the story. The writing in here was so elementary. It was a lot of things that I didn't like, and I'm going to stop talking about it now, but I would not recommend this really to anyone, honestly, which is so disappointing because the cover's gorgeous and I thought that we were going to maybe have a really unique story here, but we didn't. And I have another huge disappointment, You Must Not Miss by Katrina Leno. I know a lot of people that I have similar reading tastes to really enjoy this book, but I hated this book, and I'm not sure if it being young adult was a contributing factor of that. I feel like I haven't read a young adult that I've truly enjoyed in like 5 years, so I'm really not sure. That could have been a factor. I also just don't read a ton of young adult anymore though, so I don't know. This is kind of a play on entering an imaginary world, things maybe not being as they seem, things turning nefarious, young adult kind of fantasy horror situation. I absolutely hated our main character with my whole heart and being, and I think I was supposed to like her, so me not liking her was not helpful in any way as I progressed through this. I think I talked very extensively about this in my like reading books with pretty covers video. So if you want to hear full thoughts on that, you can go find that. I'm pretty sure I ranted for like 10 minutes in that video about all of the things that went wrong with this. Again, it just felt very disjointed to me, and not in the good way that horror can be disjointed. Okay, then I have Sex and Vanity, and I've never read this. I picked this up, I'm pretty sure out of a little free library, thinking that I would get to it. This was back when my reading tastes were a lot different. I'm pretty sure I picked this up like when I was maybe a freshman in college. So I was reading some different things at the time than I'm into now, and I feel like I really honed in on my reading taste. So I recently like pulled all of my books off my shelves and dusted them and cleaned them and sort of rearranged them. And this was just like stuffed back behind some stuff. And I'm never gonna read this, and I have no desire to read this. I don't know if this is set in the same world as Crazy Rich Asians, if this is like a sequel or a prequel, or if this is the start of its own series. I don't really know, and I don't really care. So I'm sure that this is great, but I'm not gonna read it. A similar situation with this one, The Past by Tessa Hadley. I know that I got this one out of a little free library because there used to be one by my parents' house, and then I think all the books in it got ruined during like a storm or something, and then they just took it down and like never fixed it and never put it back up. So there's no longer a little free library there, but I know that this one came from that. I don't really know what this is about, but I think it's just a contemporary with some family secrets. Seems fitting for the title. I don't really know. And again, I don't really care to find out. This is not my personal reading taste. I'm never gonna get to it. Next, I have The Lying Game by Ruth Ware, who, man, Ruth Ware just disappoints me time after time. And I get that she's a popular author, and I get that she writes like a fun, quick book. Like this is the type of book that you would find in an airport, but I just think her books are so boring. They all take so long to get into anything thrilling, and they're always alluding to these secrets and things that happened in the past over and over again, and we have to wait like 300 pages before we figure out what it is. And this book did exactly that. We're following a girlie. She goes because one of her friends from like boarding school sends her kind of a cryptic message and is like, I need you, and there's potentially a murderer in their past, but we don't know. And then we wait 200 pages just listening to different conversations between these friends before we figure out what actually went down. And then it wraps up right after we figure that out. So Ruth Ware's formula just doesn't really work for me. If you love Ruth Ware, I am so happy for you. I don't. As evidenced by the second Ruth Ware in this video, In a Dark, Dark Wood. I was so excited for this one because I thought it was going to be different than the others, okay? It starts out with the prelude of the original In a Dark, Dark Wood story in this book. So I thought we were going to get like really haunting, spooky vibes, maybe set around Halloween. Instead, we're at a bachelorette party in a house in the woods, and it's excluded, and I'm not really sure why they even rented that house in the first place. Our main character, Nora, is sort of confused because she hasn't even talked to the main character that invites her in like 10 years or something. But she ends up going randomly, which, one, I would never do that. If someone invited me to their bachelorette party and I hadn't seen them in 10 years, I'd probably be like, haha, probably not. But of course, we needed something to make the story mysterious, right? And it did the exact same thing in here that it did in The Lying Game. So I don't know. I know that these are Ruth Ware's older books and maybe her newer stuff is different. I don't think I've really read any of Ruth Ware's like newer books, so maybe I should give one of those a shot before I completely decide that I never want to read from her again, but I don't know, y'all. I'm struggling. This is one of those books that I really did enjoy, but I just don't see myself picking back up, and my bookstore does take ARCs, so this seems like a good place to go. I actually picked this up through their like ARC exchange program, and now it's going right back into it. Again, not because I didn't like it. I did. I thought that A Haunting on the Hill was great, but just not something that I want to reach for again. If I want this story, I will pick up the original Haunting of Hill House. This is just a like modern retelling of the Haunting of Hill House, but through a group of like playwrights and actors' eyes rather than, you know, the original group. Don't want to get into much detail because honestly, I can't remember what's spoilers in here for the original book, but I thought it was a fun retelling. It had good spooky vibes. I wish that it had ended a little bit different, but overall, great choice for fall. It was a super quick read. Pacing and chapters were great. I just don't see myself reaching for this ever again, and I also don't really see myself recommending that over some other haunted house books that I love, so I think it'll be good to let someone else enjoy that book in their lives now. And then last, another big disappointment for me, Sweet Bean Paste. This book, by the way, I feel like I have been super like washed out the entire time. I'm gonna adjust the brightness on you guys a little bit and see if that helps. Now it just doesn't want to focus on me. Hello. Okay, I broke the camera. I don't know how to fix that. Anyway, this book was short and cute, but I really thought that it would pack more of an emotional punch than it did, or kind of delve into deeper meaning like I feel like a lot of Japanese fiction does, and this just was disappointing for me. I do love a good translated contemporary story. Something about translated works are just so much more beautiful than like a good old American contemporary story. I think it's fun to read about elements of other cultures in a contemporary story that I just don't care to do for like a North American author, and so I'm just a little bummed out. Again, this was cute, short, easy to get through, but just wasn't as emotional as I thought it was going to be. Not that I wanted this book to be sad, but just any emotion. I feel like the range wasn't really there for what I was looking for and what I was hoping this to be. I do think I would recommend this if you really like a soft, lighthearted story. We're following our main character who works in a dorayaki shop. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it. And he meets this old woman and they kind of create a relationship. He is feeling really stuck in his life and she has lived a very long life full of many hardships, and they sort of bond and teach each other lessons about life. And I don't know. If that sounds good to you, I think that this would be good for you, but don't expect it to, again, pack an emotional punch of any kind because it doesn't do that. Now we can get on to the hardbacks, which are now all sitting on my floor. Please excuse me a moment. Okay, I have somewhat restored their stacked nature. I want to adjust you a little bit so you can enjoy looking at Tinkerbell. There she is. Okay. As far as hardbacks go, first one we're going to talk about is Walk Two Moons by Sharon Creech. I love this book. I utterly have the deepest love for the story in my heart. This was probably what I would answer if someone asked me what my favorite book was between the ages of like 12 and 15, probably. This is a really touching middle grade story. I'm just having to refresh myself really quick because I think the last time I read this, I was maybe like 18, so it's been a good hot minute. Contemporary story. We're following our main girl, Salamanca. She's on a road trip with her grandparents. We just know they're going to Idaho, but I don't think we know the reason why, so I don't want to spoil anything for you. And her grandparents are very like quirky, eccentric people, and you can see the real bond and like love that they have for their granddaughter. I was really close to my grandparents growing up, like raised almost as much by my grandparents as I was my parents, so I think that the story resonated with me really well on that front. But this being a favorite for so long, it is not my favorite anymore. I remember rereading this, I think my senior year of high school, and it just like not having the same effect on me. This book does get very emotional and very sad, and I don't think that it will be for everyone, but it was definitely for me, and I know a lot of my friends really liked this book when we were like in middle school. So if you're that age or you know someone that age, this book might be a good pick or a good recommendation, but I'm never gonna read this again, which makes me kind of sad, but I know that it's not what I enjoy anymore, and my reading tastes have grown and changed, and I want someone else to have the chance to read this. Also, this copy is a copy that I thrifted, and it has this little like library card page at the front. So Carly Ridenauer, this is so cute, and your sticker has brought me so much joy for the last however many years that I've owned this book, and I just wish the best for you, and I'm excited for someone else to get this book and enjoy Carly's little sticker on the inside as well, because that's something very special and fun about my copy. Couple more things that I've never read. Sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird. Thought I was gonna read this. Didn't get a lot of buzz or necessarily good feedback. And the more I think about it, the more I think that I don't need a sequel to that story. So I'm gonna unhaul. I'm never gonna pick this up. I actually don't like historical fiction in this time period. I just don't enjoy it. I don't know. And then I also have Enchanted Islands, which again was a pickup from my little free library that was once upon a time by my parents' house when I was still living at my parents' house. It has a really fun map in the front. I believe this is a historical fantasy, which I do enjoy a good historical fantasy. I don't really honestly care to review the synopsis because it's really long. The cover was also really pretty, but again, never read it, never going to read it. I have uttered my gripe with Book of the Month over picking books in mystery series and then not disclosing that to the readership. I don't care if I can read this book without reading the other two books. I don't want to do that. I want to read the first book in a mystery series if it's going to be a mystery series. So can we please stop picking the third book in a mystery series and then not telling the customers that it's the third book in a series? Like, I had no idea that this was the third book in the Kind Worth Killing series by Peter Swanson. And yeah, I kind of enjoyed this book. I gave it 3 stars, but it spoiled the other 2 books for me. And I didn't know that it was a third book in that series until I had already been spoiled and was like, what are these random details? Went on the Goodreads page and figured that out for myself. So now I can't confidently read the first 2 books in this series because I already know the major plot twist of the main characters. Disappointing. Similarly, this book is also, I believe, the third book in a series. I think it's called like the Blackwell Harbor series or something. I actually don't care. My mom picked out this book, and this wasn't a book series that I really had interest in reading, but my mom liked this book, and so she gave it to me. I'm sorry, Mom, but you are wrong. This was boring. I figured out the plot twist maybe on page 100, if even that. And then I just had to wait 200 pages for the detectives to figure it out. I also just hate detective stories in general. Like, I don't mind like a private detective story, but if we're just following like detectives from the police department, I don't care. I don't care about them. I don't care what happens to them. I don't want to read about that. The bonus points that this has is it takes place during Halloween. So if you want a kind of really basic detective mystery story. I'm not judging you if you like a basic detective story. I see the merit in that for other people. It's just not personally my type of book. This would be a great pick to read in October if you've read the other books in the series, because I'm telling you right now, this is the third book in a series, so don't go into it because it will spoil the other 2 books. It does. It spoils the other 2 books. So just be wise when you're picking books off Book of the Month. That is just a huge issue for me. I don't know that you guys care to know what these 2 books are about. This book is about a teenage girl that goes missing, and there's maybe a serial killer, and the parents are gonna figure it out, and the parents are like detectives, I think. I don't really remember. And yeah. And then this one is about our main girly, Lily, who is like working for this private detective, but actually it's also about Martha, because Martha's the main character kind of in this book. But Martha's not from the other books. She's just the one dealing with the mystery. She thinks her husband might be a serial killer, so she like calls up Lily and is like, Lily, can you help me figure out if my husband's a serial killer? And that's what this one's about. But again, this has major plotline spoils, like huge spoilers. for other things that have happened in Lily's life in this book. So maybe don't pick this up if you're interested in reading the first 2 books in the series. I really do have a lot of book of the month books, and I'm sorry you guys, I'm kind of planning on doing a book of the month video. So it's not that I'm like only unhauling book of the month picks, it's just that like that's all I've been reading. So I've also been keeping a lot of book of the month picks. Anyway, that's why we're seeing so many of these books. Okay, The Cartographers. This one was kind of disappointing. I gave this 3.5 stars. The beginning had a lot of promise. We're following a girl whose father was a map maker, and there's kind of a mystery surrounding this map that was found in his desk after he kind of mysteriously died. So she's sort of investigating it, trying to figure out who would maybe have wanted to kill her father, if it was murder in the first place, if there's magic. This promised to be a literary fantasy, and I have to say the magic system in here had huge plot holes. The general storyline as well also had huge plot holes, which I really genuinely did not understand at all. Like, this book wouldn't have even existed had those plot holes been explained, because they couldn't have been explained. The story wouldn't have made sense if those plot holes were explained. So cannot forgive the author for doing that, because God, I just hate that. An illogical story. It did have beautiful illustrations. The map detailing was really fun. I just wish that, just realized this dust jacket is on upside down. I just wished that the magic system was better explained, and maybe we stopped focusing so much on the sort of awkward side romance plot that was going on, because it really had nothing to do or nothing to contribute to the story. And I don't know. Again, I gave it 3.5 stars, so it wasn't awful. I thought the writing was beautiful, the scene descriptions were beautiful, the concept was gorgeous, but just some issues with me that I couldn't overlook that would cause me to never really desire to pick that up again. Well, Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. Kate Alice Marshall writes some of the very few young adult books that I absolutely love. This is her adult thriller debut. There was a kind of horror-esque element in here that I absolutely loved. We're following 3 friends, they have a secret in the past, they're joining together. Blah, 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 you know the original pitch, but this had a really unique kind of line running through it that I absolutely loved. However, plot twists kind of really fell flat for me, so I think I gave this like a 3.5, a 4-star, maybe a 4-star on a good day. I would recommend this book, yes, because the plot itself was super interesting in here. Like I said, without spoiling anything, there's like a really fun kind of horror-esque element running through here that really carried the story along, but I just didn't care too much for the ending of this story. So it's gonna go find a new home as well. I have The Breathless, which again, oh my God, one of the worst books I read this year. I'm sorry to this author. I hate to hate on your book, but this was bad. The first blurb, it says an absorbing gothic romance. This 1 was not gothic. 2, there's no romance in this. 3, the tenses are switching all of the time in here, and not by like stylistic choice, by like, I think the author forgot sometimes what tense she was writing in, and then just changed it at certain points. There's kind of a collective we at the beginning of this book that then just completely gets abandoned after like 20% of the story that's just never referred to again. Who is the we? I don't know. We're set on a gothic manor. We're following a girl whose sister has died kind of mysteriously. She's sort of trying to figure out what happened. The manor has some secrets. There's maybe like a spell book that she stumbled upon, but she doesn't really know. Maybe her sister was murdered by her boyfriend. We don't really know. Anyway, this was just a jumbled mess. I honestly don't even remember how this ended, and I'm not sure that it actually really did end in an explanatory way at all. So I would not recommend this at all to anyone. I don't wish your soul to go through that. I wish that I was like funny in these unhauls, because I love to watch unhauls of people who are just inherently funny and they just make quip after quip about books that they're unhauling. But I am just like not creative enough to come up with quips that fast. So I feel like we're basically just listening to me rant about things that I don't like, and I feel kind of bad about it. I feel like I should be making this more entertaining per se. We're almost done. Just had to take a pause. This book, holy cow. Okay, I have a lot to say about this, primarily because I just recently read it and it's actually going up in a video that hasn't been posted yet because I'm still trying to finish the last book for this video. Basically, this book started out in the first 150 pages like an ethereal experience. Like, you know, when you read Twilight for the first time and you're like 12 years old and you like have your 700-page Twilight book and like you blink and suddenly you've read 200 pages of it. That's how the beginning of this book was for me. This is a young adult historical fantasy. We're following our main girl, Inez. Her parents have died in Egypt and she lives in South America somewhere. And she's traveling there to see if she can sort of figure out the mystery of what happened. There's like an archaeological mystery going on as well, and a little bit of romance. Like, there was just so much good setup and potential in here for what this could have been. And then I hated it. I loved Inez as a main character for the first half of this book, and then something sort of happens in the middle. I don't want to go into spoilers, but basically that event sort of changes her whole personality suddenly, and then I just absolutely could not stand her. I hated her. I wanted her to literally just get killed by something, like to die. Because the story in here could have been so much better if she was just not in it anymore. Her love interest, I enjoyed him, but they had a very repetitive dialogue going on in here. There was never any true relationship development between them. They were just having the same like kind of witty banter. Like, I was expecting a romance to come out of their relationship, and then that just didn't really happen. I don't even know if they kissed in here like a single time. Maybe they did towards the end. Come on now, give us some romance. The archaeological factor in this story could have been great, but again, what the is happening in my eyeball? I was also really excited for the archaeology factor of this story, but again, it just sort of fell flat for me. There was lots of kind of fun betrayals in here and like different things that we were trying to figure out, like who is this person really? And then you thought you had it figured out and then you didn't. So I still gave this book 3 stars, I think. Maybe I gave it 2.5 in the heat of the moment because I was really disappointed. I'm not sure. But I thought that the adventure part of the story could have just been expanded on a little bit more, because that was the best part of the story. But instead we were like, who's who? Who's in love with who? Having stupid arguments between people in the family. Have it like, oh my God, I just didn't care. The second half of this series is coming out this fall, and like I think I'm the odd one out here because I was actually inspired to pick this up by someone who recommended it to me at my work, my old work. And online, like I've seen tons of people that I have similar reading tastes to loving this book and saying so many good things about it, and I'm sorry, but I hated it. I'm sorry. Also, y'all, there is something like super wrong with the contact in my eyeball. That's why I keep blinking like I'm stupid, because it's like folded, but it's not folded. And I don't know how to fix that. So I'm sorry if I'm like blinking, but we only have 2 more books. So rather than stand up and go fix this, I'm just gonna hope that it stays in long enough for me to finish filming. This book is also in that video that the other book is in, which you're probably trying to guess the video concept. You're gonna have to wait until that video goes up. This is a contemporary, this is an adult book. It is said on Goodreads to be young adult, and it's not. It's an adult book. When this video goes up, you can go watch my detailed description of why this is so falsely marketed, but the pitch of this book is that it's a coming-of-age story about a girl who lives with her kind of crazy survivalist dad in the woods, and she's kind of separated from the normal world, and it's kind of just about her figuring out who she wants to be, where she wants to be in her life, etc. Except it's not about that. This book is about child abuse, and that's it. I skimmed the last 100 pages of this book because it started repeating very graphic events that had already been done in one way or another in the first half of the book, and I really just didn't care to read those again. So I skimmed it, but I did finish it, and I hated it. I think I gave it like 1.5 stars. The writing here is beautiful, and I did learn a lot of new words, but other than that, again, wouldn't recommend this to literally anyone. When you're seeing this video, it's probably been edited down to like 20 minutes. I have been talking for 40 minutes. Okay, last book of the video, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I just talked about this last week. In last week's video on my channel, I talked about this, as well as In a Dark, Dark Wood. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, because if you're watching this, chances are you probably watched last week's video as well. This is probably really actually the last Lisa Jewell book I read, like for real. Like I'm really committing to it this time. I've said that about 6 times in my life now, and this time I think I really mean it. This book wasn't bad by any means, but I have never given Lisa Jewell anything above like a 3.5 star, and I've read 5 of her books, 6 of her books now, counting this one, I'm pretty sure. And after that many reads, if there hasn't been a 4 or 5 star, like there's never gonna be a 4 or 5 star. This book we're following Josie and Alex. Alex has a podcast. Josie's kind of this like weird lady that just happens to have the same birthday as Alex. They meet. Josie convinces Alex to do a podcast about her, and Josie is like a really strange woman, and it descends kind of into madness as they get to know each other better, and Josie tells her story to Alex. The twist in here is kind of fun, but there are some things in here that are discussed that might maybe not be approached with the most care that they possibly could have been approached with. Certain topics that I just feel like were dealt with a little bit insensitively maybe. And up to Lisa Jewell, it's a dark book, it's a dark story. I'm not gonna like dock her points for including this plot line, but it did just make me a little bit uncomfortable. So I think I'm really done with Lisa Jewell now. Like I don't think that she's ever gonna give me anything fantastic, so that's okay. Not every author is for me, and not every author's for you either, but maybe you love Lisa Jewell and you hate my favorite author, and I respect you for that. Let me quickly go back through and tell you the books in kind of a recap that I think are actually worth your time out of this unhaul. Okay, out of the 20 however many books we just unhauled, I think 5 of them are worth your time. I think A Haunting on the Hill is worth your time, especially if you've read The Haunting of Hill House and you can kind of go through and enjoy the parallels in here. I think that you would really enjoy this. I listened to The Haunting of Hill House right before I read this, and I felt like it made my reading experience of this so much better. There were so many like niche references, and I really just enjoyed it. You definitely can read this without reading The Haunting of Hill House as well, and maybe you could read The Haunting of Hill House afterwards as well and draw parallels kind of in the backwards sense. So I really do think that this one is worth your time. It's just not the best haunted house book that I've personally ever read. Sweet Bean Paste, if you're looking for something cute, simple, and very kind of surface level, which sometimes I think we all need in a book, I think that this could be a great choice for you. It's a little bit heartwarming, but for the most part, just like a mindless, easy read. I'm sorry if you can hear the cats fighting over there. It's really loud. Walk Two Moons, if you are under the age of 18, I think that you could love this. I think that you would enjoy it. I think it would be a fun time for you. A very heartfelt, emotional story, kind of the opposite of this, but like in young adult form. This is a hard-hitting contemporary, beautiful prose, meaningful story, even if it's a little bit goofy at times. It just a true love in my heart, just not anything that I would recommend for like adults to read. What Lies in the Woods, again, great thriller, great plotline running through this. Wasn't shocked by the ending, but I think it's still worth your time. Kate Alice Marshall just has a way with words and haunting tales and haunting stories, so I think that this could be a great choice for you. I'm gonna kill that cat. What do you have to say for yourself? Notice how quiet it is now. Last thing I think that's worth your time is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, because even though I don't love her, I understand that most people do love Lisa Jewell. This had fun elements. I thought the podcast in here was done exquisitely, especially because I feel like a lot of podcast books nowadays are kind of like inundating the market, overwhelming the potential for podcast stories. I think that this one took a really fun turn on that, and I do think it's worth your time. Again, it just wasn't my personal favorite. I just don't think Lisa Jewell's for me, and that's okay. So once again, thanks so much for hanging out, for watching this video. Leave any comments, any discussions you want to start down below, and I'll catch you next Sunday. Bye!